What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to show you how to make guaranteed money using prediction markets. Now that might sound too good to be true, but it's absolutely true, and I'm going to prove it by the end of this video. So this right here is my Polymarket account. As you can see, we're up a little over $20,000. So with that being said, let's get into the two methods you can use to make this guaranteed money. So method number one, now this is not one that I'm advocating for, but it is something people have done and will continue to do heading into the future. I'm simply talking about it. And that is finding manipulable markets and doing something yourself. So a great example of this, probably one of the most famous examples, was the dildo throwing incident at the WNBA courts. Now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, here's an example of the many different markets you could have bet on. As you can see, this one right here, only one of them ended up resolving to, and guess, Thursday, August 7th, right? And if we go to the graph history, you can see that for the most part, it was hovering around that 25% chance. So if you would have gone ahead and put your money into this, you could have made a 4x return. And I guarantee you, whoever threw that thing on the court that day, 100% had put some money into this, because why else would you do it, right? But the thing is, there's no way to actually prove it because this is all under crypto and everyone's anonymous. So the person who did throw it must have felt that the risk to reward made sense. And the thing is, they didn't even need to be the one to do the throwing. Like, they could have gone outside the stadium, found a homeless person, got him a ticket, a new outfit, and then had $1,000 waiting for them after the fact. Now that market has been long removed, but there are many other markets currently. Now it's not always as obvious as this, but if you think outside the box a little bit, there are many different ways to manipulate a market, and it's not always bad things either, right? So there was this guy, goes by Riser, and he ended up making well over 300% on a mentions market. Now if you don't know what that is, it's basically just predicting what people will say before an event. And this guy bet on a particular live streamer who I'm forgetting, but the bet was whether or not he would say crypto or Bitcoin, so either of those two words. And the market had that priced very low, but this guy had his game plan ready to go, because during the live stream there was text to speech, and he actually donated and phrased a question in a way where the guy, I forgot what he said, either crypto or Bitcoin, but he ended up saying one of those words, and he ended up profiting quite a bit. So when I say self-manipulate, it's not always stuff that's going to get you thrown into jail, okay? That's perfect. What he did is perfectly legal. But if doing something yourself is a little bit too extreme, don't worry, because we have method number two, which is having insider information. So this could be anything, because there's so many markets to bet on. All you need is a friend, family, cousin, anything that it works somewhere important and can give you some type of information before everyone else. Now, if you don't have any friends or family in any of these important positions, don't worry, we're in the same boat, but you have to understand other people do, and there's going to be insiders all over prediction sites, and we can take advantage of this by finding those accounts. Because you have to understand, although everyone's anonymous, no account is anonymous. Everything's stored on the chain. So you can view every account, you can view every transaction. And a personal example I have of me profiting off this very strategy happened earlier this month, so follow along here. It was on this market right here. And basically, what you need to understand about MSTR or MicroStrategy markets is that there are always filled with insiders. I know this because you can scroll down on any market and view the top holders, and accounts like this are always betting on MicroStrategy. Like this guy right here is 7 for 8 on MicroStrategy bets. He only bets on MicroStrategy for the most part. It's an obvious insider, and there's tons of other accounts like this always betting on MSTR related stuff. So on this particular day, when I saw this market kind of closer to 50-50, I was very interested, because usually markets that are always filled with insiders will quickly pick a side, right? They never stay close to 50-50 for obvious reasons. But what had happened on this day was there were two massive accounts buying the other side like crazy, and they were fully convinced they were correct. Now, obviously, we know now that they were delusional, but at the time, I didn't simply buy yes just because I saw some insiders, right? What I did is I studied how they behaved in the past, and whenever insiders were on the wrong side of the bet, because they can be wrong, but whenever they are, they quickly get out of the bet, whether it be at a 20, 30, 50% loss. They never let the market resolve. And on this particular day, it was only a few hours to resolution and all of them were buying like crazy. So in this kind of 50-50 situation, obviously I'm going to side with the insiders, and I ended up being correct. Now that right there, in my opinion, is as close as you can get to free money. Now, if you've been following along and are a critical thinker, you might be wondering, why would anyone ever bet against insiders in the first place? Well, in that case right there, it was just pure delusion, right? We're humans after all. But in other cases, there's tons of other reasons. So you might have gotten it in before the insiders, so the insiders might have showed up later. You might not even know of their presence. Not everyone is scanning the top holders all the time. It could also just be a simple fact of the odds being so good that even if you know there are insiders on whatever side, one of the odds pay out so well that you still take the risk. Now the last point I have is my favorite because it's made me the most money, so follow along here, and that is betting on easily manipulable markets, okay? So a great example of this, and another time I ended up profiting a little over $2,000 was on this market right here. Basically this bald dude who I had no idea who this was at the time, but basically he was doing a water fast in the desert, and I watched this market go all the way up to 70%. And I'm taking a look at all the top holders, and there's really no suspicious accounts. No one that looks like insiders, right? They were all established people with tons of trades took the top accounts. And so this got me thinking, what is stopping this guy from just failing the challenge on purpose and then getting in on anonymous accounts and buying a whole bunch of no? Because this isn't like a super rich guy, right? So, and with the amount of liquidity that was on this market, he could have easily made well over $100,000. So I placed a little over $1,000 on no, and what do you know, he ends up failing. Now, I don't know if it was completely just my hypothesis why he failed, but it very well could have been, because I do remember a few accounts being super suspicious at the time, but these were the two that I found, and I thought this was very suspicious. So these two guys right here literally ended up joining one day apart from each other, and both of them put a large amount of money immediately into this Lord Miles challenge. Ended up both of them getting in at the perfect bottom, and for both of them it's one of their only trades, and now both of the accounts are mostly inactive. And these weren't the only two accounts, there were a few more that were just super suspicious like this. Okay, time to talk about the downsides of all this. I know I've made it seem like it's free money, and it essentially is, right? But it's not easy money. There's a big difference there, especially with method 1. If you go too extreme, you can end up facing jail time, so definitely don't do anything crazy. But that's not even the main issue. The main issue to all of this is there's a massive liquidity issue. So for example, that riser guy was only able to make, not only $2,000 is a lot, but he wasn't able to make, like, you couldn't have made anything more because your average price just climbed so much because of liquidity. Other downsides, right, especially with method 2 is, number 1, insiders can be wrong, so you need to be very careful. And it's oftentimes much lower percentage gains. So that MSTR example I showed where I ended up making over a 100% gain is quite rare, right? Usually it's closer to like 10 to 20% if you're using that strategy. And another problem is when you're trading alongside insiders, they're always going to be able to get out faster than you. So you're always going to be liquidity for them. You could even be getting used as bait for arbitrage on like another site. And so for that reason, my favorite way to bet on this site is on the easily manipulable markets, on whatever the highest percentage gain would be, and just capitalize on everyone's greed. Obviously there's a lot more that goes into all of this. If I wanted to make like a truly comprehensive video of everything I've learned and know, it would be well over 3 hours long. So I mean, if you want to see that, let me know. But I hope you see how prediction markets could be free money if used correctly, and especially if you're like a true insider. That's just like a few weeks ago, some top Google executive, we don't know who he is, but he ended up making $1 million in a few hours betting on like the most searched person or whatever. It was like a guy nobody even knew, and it was absolutely insane. So if you'd like to see more videos on different bets, let me know, and take care.